Let's go.
You're listening to Making Data Simple, where we make the world of data effortless, relevant, and yes, even fun.
Let's go.
Welcome to Making Data Simple. This is the venue where we talk about data, we talk about AI, everything in between, governance, analytics, pretty much I think anything is fair game. And we talk about culture, leadership, we get to know our guests. This is Al Martin, I'm your host. As always, let us know how we're doing and what do you want to see more of. You would maybe be surprised at how well we react to the feedback that you give us to almartintalksdata@gmail.com. So please continue with that feedback. Today, I got a very prestigious guest, which is Michelle Peluso, who's the Senior Vice President of Digital Sales and Chief Marketing Officer here at IBM. But I'm going to try to do this justice, Michelle, and this is difficult given your pedigree. I mean, it's very long, and I won't be able to do it justice, but I'm going to try. You have been with IBM since 2006, but in short, you have been a former White House fellow. You've been a CEO of Travelocity. You are a global consumer chief marketing and internet officer at Citigroup. I'm told that New York City has you to thank for City Bike. You're a board of director of Nike. I could keep going on, but my first question before we even begin is, how or do you even sleep? That's the question.
Well, thank you. And I've been here since 2016, not to date myself too much.
Oh, okay.
But I think you could have simplified that entire introduction by saying I work and I'm a mother. I do, of course, sleep, and I'm ruthless with my time. I'm so careful and thoughtful about how I use my time.
Yeah, well, that's very good. So I will try to keep your time very on point today. I feel like a slacker though now, I have to tell you. So can you give us a little bit more of an intro in terms of your background? And I know that you haven't always been in marketing, so this is interesting. And you lead marketing for IBM. So could you say a few words?
Yeah, well, I've always been passionate about how technology is reshaping people's lives and people's experiences. And so whether I was running Travelocity at the very beginning of the digital revolution when the internet and digital capability was remaking travel, or when I was global chief marketing and digital officer at Citigroup in banking, right after the financial crisis when we had to lean on technology and digital in all new ways, or CEO of Guilt, the fashion company, or on the board of Nike, that intersection between data, technology, and people's lives is a really fun place to be.
So I've got to ask, why IBM? You could be anywhere. I know where I'm at IBM, but you have an interesting career path. What drew you to IBM?
It's an incredible company that changes how the world works era after era. And I really do believe that the advance of all these technologies, which will reshape every profession, every industry. Now we see that with AI. We certainly see that with cloud. We see that on the horizon with things like quantum and blockchain. That being at a company that is as principled as IBM is, and that has the values that IBM has, that's a real privilege. That's a real privilege to be able to usher in new technology, sort of arm in arm with the IBMer.
Very good, very good. So now I've asked you why IBM. You've had a lot of roles. You got an MA for philosophy, politics, economics. So why marketing? What brings you to marketing?
Well, I think that the marketing profession has changed tremendously over the past 5 to 10 years. And the best marketers are really, truly revenue officers. They're operators. They're thinking about, they should be the closest to the customer. They should be the best position to understand the data of the company, to think about how data and technology can help transform the relationship companies have with their customers. And so, I approach the marketing job in very much the same way I approach my CEO job, really thinking about the entire company, thinking about the clients, being incredibly client-centric and leveraging analytics and technology in new ways to drive growth for IBM.
So help me a little bit more on the landscape of where marketing is today, because there are so many venues, so many different ways to market to clients, so much data, as we just talked about. In some areas like marketing is being taken away. Like I'm watching TV and I wonder how they market, because I've got my DVR and I skip through all the ads. But now that I see that they're adding them back directly in the program themselves. In fact, I watch football or whatever, and I see that they split the screen and they market while the game's still going. What's the landscape today? It's got to be a huge, huge challenge because it's changing so dramatically.
Well, that's right. The channels have proliferated intensely. The data and the ability to get signals from consumers has, it's just astronomically larger than it used to be. So I think at the end of the day, as an innovative marketer, you really have to think about, of course, the big idea. What is the big idea of the company? What's the message? What's the creative point of view? That matters. Storytelling matters more than ever. And you see that with really successful brands. And for us, we know that IBM exists to change how the world works era after era. So our heritage of smarter thinking, now smart loves problems, this idea that we will roll up our sleeves with our clients and tackle the world's greatest problems. That's our DNA. That is what we stand for. Now, having said that, data increasingly establishes transparency by giving an empirical standard to tie marketing inputs to business outputs and business outcomes. And so there's so much more we can do to tie every dollar we spend back to outcomes and back to results. And that's the really exciting thing about marketing. But then, of course, the third leg is you have to be willing to transform the way you work. And so as marketers here at IBM, and I see this now starting to happen in other companies, we've completely changed the way we do our marketing work. We now have small, agile, self-empowered teams, true agile discipline, so that they can iterate and optimize, make decisions in real-time fashion based on all this data. So big creative idea, leveraging data as an empirical standard to understand how we should spend money, what we should drive, and then agile teams to take decisions based on that data in rapid fashion.
So great answer. I do got to put you on the spot for a second for a question I often get. I want to know how to better answer it. So no matter what event I go to, clients will give me grief about, hey, you're not marketing my specific product. Maybe for obvious reasons, they're traditionally a fanatic about this product that we're talking about in question. And I point out the fact, I say, look, we've got like 1 billion products. We're selling solutions. We're selling a story. But, they're just tied to their product. And they say, yeah, but I'd like to see the database highlighted on some billboard on, 101 freeway or something.
Right.
How do I answer that?
So it's very clear that telling fewer stories with bigger emphasis matters in this era. That if we fragment our storytelling to every offering, every product, we won't win the hearts and minds of our clients. Now, having said that, every one of our products should be always on, optimized, search engine discoverable, and sort of a really compelling and powerful web presence that people can find anytime they're looking for that great offering. But it's very clear to me that any company that tries to have big conversations about every single thing they're doing doesn't capture the hearts and minds of their customers and their clients. And that's true not just in B2B technology, but just as much, of course, in the broader world. So understanding the most important conversations clients want us to have, tripling down on those conversations at events with our digital presence in our advertising is the right way to go as we try to drive results. But having always on, highly discoverable, delightful product experiences, search engine optimize is a nice complement to that strategy.
For those
so
of us,
tell your friend they're not going to see the billboard on 101 anytime soon.
I've told them that many times, but they're fanatics, which is great.
Passionate, exactly.
We need that passion. So I'm not gonna push that away anytime soon. But I get it. Thank you for that. So with the focus to AI, cognitive cloud, how have the value propositions changed? Target audiences? Could you talk to that a little bit? I mean, that's essentially where we're at right now. There's a lot of people that are marketing in the same vein. How do we differ?
Yeah. So first of all, we have to really think differently about our audiences. We know, for instance, that developers, CTOs, and the like play an increasingly powerful role in how you get started with AI at any company. We know, as Rob Thomas, I'm sure, has been a guest before, as he's pointed out, the
Yep.
ladder to AI is really critical as we think about data scientists. And we also know that when we're talking to somebody who, say, runs a call center or who runs a marketing organization, they're very focused on how do they take things like artificial intelligence or the ladder to AI, combine it with changing the way they work to really get to scale impact. So I'll use the cloud, or I'll use the customer service as an example. If you think about voice recognition and chatbots, AI empowered chatbots, technology is an important component for sure of changing the way your customers interact with the call center. But just as much, you have to change the way the call center works. If you think about historical call centers, all the measures, average handle time, first call resolution, all these things, the way people sit row after row, one agent, one customer, headphones on, that changes pretty radically in a call center powered by AI, where all of a sudden you have, teams of 10 people overseeing perhaps 1,000 simultaneous chats. Time is asynchronous. The customer starts a chat, they go do something else, they come back, et cetera. So the current metrics, average resolution, average handle time, first call resolution, those things don't make sense anymore. The kind of people you need who are going to train the AI algorithms, think about making sure there's not bias, that changes. So it's a great example where the audience of maybe the developers who are going to build the AI chatbots, the experts and the call center agents who are going to train, and then these teams of people who are going to understand and really be able to measure and monitor social tone to say, when do they take a chat off because it's going south with the customer. It's a very different call center, and it's a good example, a microcosm of what has to happen to make AI happen at scale in an organization.
Very good. So pause for just a moment on marketing. There's probably many listeners that aren't experts. I'm certainly not an expert in marketing. Here's the question, and follow my thought here. How do you define success? How do you know what to do next? And the what's behind my question is kind of, we tend to be enterprise driven. So it's often difficult, at least in my view, to see, to be out there with a commercial product because, we're often in the enterprise, right? But I do see us getting into areas like ESPN, where we got Watson predicting outcomes to games and probabilities, et cetera. I see us involved with Wimbledon and driving what I want to say, just outlining, plays that you see within different courts that you wouldn't normally see. And there's many other examples. What is our thought process there?
So we know that a lot of our competitors have very strong consumer presence. They're, potentially in your home or on your phone, your device, the way you think about some of your office productivity tools. So we know it's really important to make sure that people understand the impact of technologies like Watson, and that it creates great brand halo and relevance when we can show how Watson works in the real world. So doing things like showing how Watson aids the fan experience or highlights from a major sporting event, how we bring that technology to life in fantasy or with ESPN or with Wimbledon or the US Open, or even, frankly, the weather company, which is really an incredible consumer touch point. These are ways that we can show how Watson works in the real world, that we can create and establish a sense of what artificial intelligence is, and frankly, versus our competitors, what the benefit and the value of real, deep, natural language processing looks like and feels like in the real world. So that's one of the reasons why we're often thinking about, when we do advertising, not just how do we show up in commercials, but which we could do for the US Open, but also how do we show Watson in the real world? How do we leverage our technology to help the US Open and also to improve the fan experience?
So, got you. So with a vast amount of data from a variety of sources, how do you know what data is relevant? I mean, that's what we deal with every day. particularly on this podcast, a lot of people are interested in the data, but we cover everything on the ladder to AI. But there's so many data sources. And the challenges that we see with many clients is I got to believe the same challenge you see within marketing, being that, look, I got to cleanse data, I got to find it, I got to mine it. Sometimes they put data to a data lake. Now it's a data swamp.
Yeah.
In marketing, I got to believe this. You issue the same challenges.
Yeah, but I think the problem is the vast majority of people start with the notion of a data lake or a data swamp and go up. We at IBM, certainly in marketing, we start the opposite end. We start by asking the right questions, focusing all of our time and energy on what are the right questions to ask? What are we really trying to solve? What would drive different outcomes? When we ask the right questions, then we can actually pursue the data we need to solve those problems in rapid, agile fashion. So I think we just have a different point of view in how we think about it. I think the heart of a great data science organization, analytics organization, frankly, business organization is, do you have the right questions? Are you asking the most powerful, most important questions? Because then it becomes pretty easy to figure out, well, what data do I need to answer this question and solve this problem? And how do I best turn that into a series of visualizations that can give agile teams the power to make changes in rapid progress?
Good answer. So back to AI then, how can AI itself be used within our marketing processes to predict marketing-led outcomes? And do you have any examples of that?
Yeah, so AI is reshaping marketing, I think, in three concrete ways. One, it's enabling us to have a different kind of relationship, an interactive relationship with the customer. And if you think about it, advertising historically has been very focused on, here's our message and send it out. With something called Watson Ads, you can now have interactive advertising. So you can say, here's the things in my refrigerator, and a Campbell soup ad will serve up what recipe you should make for dinner. That's an example of using and embedding AI with customers directly to make ads interactive. You can imagine how powerful that is to get all that information and data back from the consumer, and frankly, how much more engaging it is and targeted it is for the consumer. That's one example. Secondly, AI is increasing our sophistication, understanding of our customers and consumers. So we can understand things like tone and personality way better now with artificial intelligence than we could when things were just sort of simple, straight, search boxes and responses. So understanding the tone of a customer call, the tone of a query, where people are potentially frustrated or delighted, elated, and to gather that much richer perspective on the customer. So that's a second way AI is reshaping marketing. But the third way, of course, is helping our marketers understand what their next best action is. So at IBM in marketing, we have used Watson to provide alerts to our 200 plus agile marketing teams based on all the data. Here's what you should focus on. Your engagement rate in paid social is not where the rest of the company's at or where benchmarks are. If you have time, you should dive deep into this. And by the way, particularly paid search on Google or this channel or in this country. And by the way, it's not that you're not driving clicks, you're not driving anything beyond the first click. So you should really think about the landing experience. Those are examples where AI can provide insight to teams on what their next best action could be. And that's a huge opportunity for marketers who are otherwise inundated. You mentioned earlier, all the proliferation of channels. If we don't let AI help shape their next best action, it can be overwhelming.
So here's another question for you, somewhat related. And you mentioned the ladder to AI. And for those that are listening, the ladder to AI is essentially you got to collect, organize, analyze, and infuse your data. Trust is in there as well. And AI gets a lot of publicity. Everybody, it's the sexy. It's. Some people think it's magic. It's just computer science. But at the end of the day, it's what draws people in. But I'm often talking about the other steps of the ladder to be able to enable that digital transformation to AI. From a marketing viewpoint, where do you see the vast majority of clients from an awareness and interest perspective within that ladder?
Yeah, it's a really important question. I think that, I guess in some ways, data standards and governance is such a critical foundation piece. Um, uh, so I guess maybe it's around the organization, but if you don't, if you don't really think carefully and thoughtfully, number one, about the principles, whose data is this? We at IBM have always believed that our clients' data is their own. Having a strong point of view on data and governance, and then standards, so that when you ingest data from the many, many, many disparate sources from a marketing perspective that all of us, see data from, how do we make sense of it all? And are we making sense of it? Are we really focused on understanding standards so that, when we spend $1 in this channel or in this country or on this offering or in this way, we can translate that in a way that is consistent across all of our countries, all of our offerings, and all of our industries and professions. So I think a principled approach and to data governance and passion for data governance and a maniacal focus on data standards, to me, underpin or underscore any successful data science strategy. You get that right, and then you can turn to really powerful visualizations and the like to let agile teams run. But those two are really foundational.
Well, that leads me into a couple follow-on questions with that. I was going to ask you, what do you think differentiates IBM from the rest of the crowd, particularly as it comes to AI and cloud? Is that the client data being their own? I do see there's definitely a rhythm in the industry right now where everybody's trying to steal your data. And I am proud of IBM of taking the seriously taking the approach that, look, we don't want your data, it's your own. But are there other areas that differentiate us?
Well, I mean, I think, let's go back to that conversation we just had about the call center. Only IBM, to get a call center really powered by AI, to make the customer experience better, to make Net Promoter Score rise, to help the company find efficiency, to make sure workers feel empowered and engaged. A lot of things has to come together. You have to have the right data strategy. Really understanding your data strategy is critical. You have to have the right analytical tools. You have to have the right AI technology. You have to have the right process transformation and people transformation. And that's the place IBM plays at its best. Only IBM can bring all of that together to make real change happen at scale. And to me, that's super powerful. You combine that with our principles and our values and the way we approach the world, whether that's our data rights and data protections and data principles, or whether that's the principles we published on AI, the work we put into making sure that AI is explainable and that results are traceable. I mean, there's all these things, the passion we have for inclusion. I think IBM has been a pioneer in technology for over 108 years because not the technology we provide, that's been powerful and important era after era, but also because of the notion, the security, and the trust that we will work with our clients to usher new technologies in really responsible ways. I think that's the core of the IBM promise. And I'm probably very biased, but I don't think anybody else in the world can do that.
That's all right. We can be pro IBM in this podcast. That's okay. I try to be product agnostic, but pro IBM is allowed. But let me ask you this on the data governance piece. On the data governance, I know data governance in the industry, but as it specifically relates to marketing, look, I feel like, again, everybody's trying to take our data. I get on any website and it feels like I got Big Brother watching me. The more data you have, the better decisions you can make. What's that balance that you drive with marketing, though? Because I got to believe you're saying, hey, the more data you get, the better you know your customer, the more you can present options, alternatives that they may find attractive. But where do you define the line between that and privacy?
Yeah, that's critical. That's why these principles are so important. That's why having a sense of whose data this all belongs to is so critical. It's why we look at GDPR as a minimum standard, not a sort of a maximum threshold. So I think that we know that consumers want more personalized experiences. We know clients want more personalized experiences. Everything must be subject to consent. Everything must be incredibly transparent in terms of how we use data. And of course, we have to be very thoughtful and careful about our bigger principles, like, whose data the client's data is client's data. So there's no other way to earn the trust of clients decade after decade.
So I've got to do a lightning round, but before I do, and I'll explain that to you, where can people find out more what you're doing, what you're working on? What's the best location that they could reach you, whether it's LinkedIn or otherwise?
Well, you can always go to my LinkedIn profile, my Twitter profile, sending an email at michelle.peluso@ibm.com, and we're happy to put you in touch, and also to make sure that you connect up with the really powerful data scientists we have here in IBM marketing.
Thank you. We'll do that. We'll put that in the show notes. I do have a quick lightning round that we like to do for guests, and this is to get to know Michelle Peluso. Is that all right? So what this is intended to do is just a few questions, just riddle off, quick answers.
Sure. Let's do it.
So for my girls, which I always tell them, hey, you only get to where you are because of you've got to be willing to make failures. You got to give me one failure you've had so I can feel good about myself, given your resume.
Plenty of acquisitions that didn't go as well as I wanted them to, that were huge learning lessons for me. Plenty of times that I have hired people and been really passionate about growing them really fast, and I haven't been thoughtful enough about what development they need. Places where I've in sort of personal life really, I've been class mom, and so in some cases been a disastrous class mom. So there's plenty of places where I haven't achieved all that I wanted to. But to your point, grit and grace. Have the grit to be bold, have huge ideas, the courage to take those things on, and the grace to understand how to learn and get better every time.
From a larger perspective, how do you define success? It'd be professional, personally. In your life, how do you define success?
Well, I think you want to leave, every interaction, every experience better. It's a little bit the old camp, Girl Scout camper motto or Boy Scout camper motto. But I think you judge yourself ultimately on, are you a great mother? Are you a great wife? Do you add to the community? Do you inspire and make the teams under you do their best work? Do people around you feel like you bring out the best in them? I think that's ultimately a really powerful question that we all have to answer. So
you are a mother, correct? A mother too? Is that correct?
That's right. Yes.
So I know there's going to be some ladies out there. How do you balance motherhood with all you're doing?
Well, I am really thoughtful and careful about my time and how I use my time. I had a boss once who said, Michelle, every time you embark on a bold journey, look left, look right, make sure you really have the right people in the boat with you. So surrounding myself by exceptional teams, I work in Agile by and large, and so believe in the power of short, focused stand-ups and thoughtful and constant retrospectives. I leave the office every day at, between sort of 5 and 6, so that I'm home with my kids for dinner and homework, and then I go back and work afterwards. So all sorts of things. But I always am looking at ways, really on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, certainly whenever I have long flights, how do I get crystal clear about what my priorities are, what I want to drive, what do I want to accomplish, and am I using my time in alignment with what I think is most important? And as long as you're someone who is passionately committed to doing that constant retrospective, are you using your time in the way that lines up with the things that matter most, professionally, personally, et cetera? I think you're always able to adjust and to make tomorrow stronger.
So speaking of long flights, I was on a long flight coming here, kind of doing the same. I had to take a pause, take a breath, and I did a mind map of some priorities, using a mind map software to say, all right, wait a second, what are the top priorities? What do I need to focus on? How do I get straight? What do you use? How do you do it?
It's funny because I'm the most digital person you can imagine. I really don't store anything. My poor kids are constantly on my case for being like the purger. I don't keep anything. I don't have paper at all. But the one thing that I'm a Luddite about is when I'm thinking about my priorities, I like to write. I actually just like to take a notebook and pen and write. And I like to physically print my calendar for the past 3 months and go through it and circle things and question things and map things. And so it's maybe my one Luddite trait, but I love being very old school when it comes to kind of, I find something about writing things out in hand forces me to kind of, I don't know, think differently and reprioritize. So that's how I do it.
I've tried to switch to writing because I think it helps you remember things better sometimes, but I'm so fast in typing, etc. I have a hard time doing that.
Yeah,
So that's interesting.
exactly.
I had to think about it. So what advice would you give for women in tech that are, or it doesn't really need to be tech, but are trying to advance their career?
Yeah. Well, I think, surround yourself with exceptional people. That is the most important advice. Take the jobs, take the responsibilities where you're going to be surrounded by people you can learn from. That's incredibly critical. Secondly, I think those, the places where you have that real passion, for me, that intersection between technology and consumers' lives, being in a place where you have passion really can bring out the best in you and the people around you. Very, very much, focus on your prioritization of your time. That is the most valuable gift you have and the most important asset you have for you, for your family, for your work colleagues. So really on a constant journey of thinking about your time, and then be agile. Be agile. Really, truly, as a discipline, learn and be agile. So those would be just some quick pointers.
Could you give us a quick day in the life? I mean, what time do you get up? Do you exercise? How does you got a rhythm?
Yeah. So I'm up by like 5:15, 5:30. I like to read, up with the kids by 6, getting them, last bits of homework, breakfast, whatever it is. Kids are at school either at 7 or 8, depending on, there's some morning things a couple days a week. So my husband and I live a few blocks away. So often I'm the one dropping them off, and then I can be at the office literally 2 minutes later. We moved to be very close to their school and to the office. So, I can be at my desk by either 7:05 or 8:05. And then it is a jam-packed whirlwind of a day every day. Everything is in 15-minute increments, maybe half an hour. I never have a break on my calendar. But then by 5 or 5:30, I'm out the door and home, picking a kid up from an activity or home for dinner, homework. And then I'm back online and back working at about 8:30. So, and then read before going to bed, talk to girlfriends, talk to my husband, whatever the case may be. Exercise on weekends. I got to get better.
Do you time box things on your calendar that makes it so jam packed, or is it just meetings that you have to be a part of?
I control my calendar very rigorously.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Exactly. What do you do for fun?
Kids, girlfriends, exercise, skiing, travel, reading, vegetable gardening, etc. So.
You are freaking amazing. I have to tell you, amazing. All right, so I'm finishing up just with it. This will be very quickly. This is what I call would you rather.
Yeah.
All right. So economics or philosophy?
Economics.
Wow. University of Penn or Oxford?
Oh, that's hard. Different. Oxford was amazing. But UPenn was, I can't decide.
Nike Jordans or Converse? Both owned by Nike, by the way.
Nike Jordans.
All right. And my team asked me to ask this, so I am not well versed, so I'll just say this right off. Gestalt or behavioralism?
Oh, goodness gracious. I think I need to ask your team about that one.
Okay, forget it then, because that's what they want to be. You got the philosophy degree, I don't. I was like, wow.
Exactly. You can tell them they stumped me. How's that?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. What a pleasure. Thank you, Al.
This has been fantastic. You're amazing. I hope everybody else, I know everybody else will get that as well. So thank you for being on. I know your time is very precious, as you pointed out. So we've learned a lot today. Thank you so much for being here.
Terrific.
All right. And guys, as always, let us know how we're doing. Give us some feedback. almartintalksdata@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Making Data Simple podcast, where we make data fun. be sure to visit IBMBigDataHub.com/podcasts to access the show notes and uncover even more great episodes. Remember, the views expressed here are those of the host and its guests and do not necessarily represent the views of IBM. Until next time,
Let's go.
over and out.